My name is Vesna Petresin, and I'm a little bit of an outsider today. I'm an artist. And I'm part of the Wunder team, the startup. We have the first slide, please.
And I think we just need 1 minute for the slides.
Okay, so let me tell you about what I normally do. I'm an artist working with analog media, but also more and more with digital media, new media as we call it. And that involves creating, as many of my colleagues today do, still digital image, moving image, virtual reality experiences, augmented reality experiences, mixed reality, live shows, including movement, soundscapes, interaction, and that can be applied to either experiences within the gallery spaces and traditional setups like theaters or opera houses, or public art in the field of the open spaces like open doors. But what is happening at the moment is that I begin to think that, like many of my colleagues around the world who are practicing media art, we live mostly online. We use PayPal, we use Airbnb. We are quite interested in, all the new developments that actually allow us to move to a moneyless economy. And what we are actually being increasingly frustrated by is this block that we see in terms of how retarded with backwalkers actually the art industry is, which is traditionally should be the source of all innovation. So that's just a quick glimpse of one of my experiences. The problem comes with the fact of how on earth do we actually not just communicate this type of art, because it's very difficult to reproduce it. It's very difficult to actually explain to someone what actually happens when you experience, let's say, an augmented reality installation. But other problems appear as well. How do we promote? How do we share? How do we sell? How do we buy? How do we get rewarded for this kind of art? And is it collectible at all? And how do we even begin discussions with museums that are still stuck in a 19th century model of the past? So this was one of the reasons why I started collaborating with the team behind Wunder. And my colleague David De Haag is here, standing there, who is actually the brain behind all these projects. He has a voice problem today, so I would refer to him later on for all the questions on a one-to-one basis. And I'm sure that one day technology will solve that as well. So let's have a look at what we can offer. So Wunder is not unique in the art world. There are other projects that work within the sales and promotion and collecting of the art world. But what Wunder does is that it's the world's first blockchain-based, decentralized museum, actually a museum for media art. And it's combining philanthropy, it's combining art as investment, exclusively focused really on media art. So why do we need it? It was obviously, as I mentioned before, created with that wish to eliminate the barriers that we encounter with the traditional approach that is taking shape in the world of museums that are actually blocking rather than encouraging the fluidity of art and collecting. On the other hand, we are probably familiar at some point with how easy it is to just take a snapshot, a screen grab of a video or a picture we found on the internet. And we may not be able to respect the artist's rights. Sometimes that happens even with works that are encrypted. So how do we make sure that we have control over the number of copies that we as artists want to offer to the market? And how do we actually enable a trust-based online sharing and transactions? So museums are the source of the problem. As you probably don't need reminding, most of the artists still struggle to survive, to make a living. And history shows us a lot of frustrated artists from suicidal ones to cutting their ears off, and then, post-mortem appears, and after that you become very wealthy. But that's all based on a model of transaction that actually is based on almost a medieval structure of land ownership, where craftsmanship and producing work in masters' studios, ateliers, produced a single object that is very hard to obtain, that is very expensive. So what is actually the advantage here that we're offering? Because this is a decentralized, autonomous system, we were looking into how big is actually the global addressable consumer market. It's an estimate that it's worth about $300 billion US dollars. And it's not just addressing collectors, it's also addressing investors, because we see that currently with all the forms of digital media-based art, it's addressing a fresh, new audience that see art as an investment. And also, there's another strand to that, which is also very interesting. It takes art out of the white cube, and it puts it into the real context of architecture, interiors, homes, hospitality venues. So there's a lot of licensing opportunities there. There are 5 disruptions that Wunder introduces in this new model. The first one is a major one, really, is the patron protocol, which actually reduces the risk in investments. And because it's regulated by smart contracts, it provides a sense of trust. It allows a more liquid market. And as you can see, we've come up with this distribution of angel patrons and patrons that offer either temporary or permanent access to the works. So the second disruption is actually enabled by smart contracts, and it provides increasing trust and transparency. So patrons have temporary access, and angel patrons are hierarchically the top, and they have permanent access. This structure, we can talk about it a bit later, how exactly that unfolds, but it really provides more and more transparency.
So unfortunately, I have to stop you,
Yeah.
and we will move to the questions.
Yeah.
All right?
Do you mind if I just wrap up?
10 seconds.
Right. So what Wunder does today is that it allows you to access art wherever you are, whenever you want it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. For the questions? So we would like to invite, I guess, the team member, right, for the questions. So any questions from the jury?
If my colleagues are quiet, I would like to thank you. It's refreshing to see a little bit another idea and not always the same ideas. I would love to learn a little bit more. We didn't hear anything about what do you plan with the ICO and what is the use of the fund. So could you please tell us something about it? Huh?
I have no voice, so I will try. You were out singing. Exactly, exactly. That's a nasty case of flu. So our public ICO is forecasted for April. Currently, we are taking part in one of the first accelerators for ICOs, is Iconic Lab in Germany, also with FinLab as partner. So we're very proud of that. And we plan our ICO in April and the public ICO in June. So our token economics has 2 utilities. It's first of all the access to the works of art in temporary access, which makes it clearly a utility token, but also on a second level, an asset token for angel patrons, as Vesna already mentioned, that are those collectors that purchase permanent access rights from these works and also benefit from the rental recurring revenue.
Can I just speak into the microphone? Yes, I think it will help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. So that's where we create value, and that clearly makes it an asset value. And later down the pipeline, we also want to offer the whole platform as an open source token protocol for other institutions, galleries, artist groups to use, and also benefit then obviously our token and strengthen it.
Thank you. Any more questions? We have time for one more question. Anyone? Jury? All right. Sorry, I will come to you after.
You mentioned philanthropy.
Yes.
And what is your experience with, the adaptation for philanthropy to go into this new way of is
Art and philanthropy have always been interweaved in as long as we had Lorenzo de Medici in the Renaissance supporting artists directly. What we now allow is that instead of just a few of those patrons helping a few artists, we will have 1 million people helping hundreds of thousands of artists directly and being rewarded for it. So it's a new kind of philanthropy. It's direct involvement. It's also a social currency for the patrons that support the artist. And it's also financially rewarding. So it's all enabled by blockchain. That's for us the biggest enabler.
And perhaps just one small addition. It's obviously a phenomenon you're very well aware of, that millennials are less concerned about owning and they're more into sharing. So we're also trying to stimulate that.
All right, we have one more short question. It's short question.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt the applause. Sorry. But it's regarding the point 2 on the slide you showed before with the IPFS. What is the role of IPFS in sharing these works of art? That will be my question. Thank you.
Obviously, for expensive works of art, that's the permanent access rights, we can't go completely decentralized. We still need our centralized database for regulation, and because museums and galleries will never accept that quasi-unregulated environment of IPFS, for example. So what we use it now for is already take the first step of this decentralization and have our friendly streaming copies over there. So that allows also for an even more democratic art market, because people that just participate in with making available a small portion of their art drive to host these works can also participate free access in the museum without having to, and they receive our coin, and obviously they can have access. So that makes it for anybody. Artists find it very interesting to see what other artists are doing and may not have the financial means to pay these monthly subscriptions and so on. So just by sharing a little bit of that drive, they can do so.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for answering the questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I would like to invite the next startup, the next project to present. Thank you.